All right. Yesterday, over the loud complaints of the teachers union, the Fresno Unified School District has declared that word impasse in those negotiations for a new labor contract. John and Jen beat this up pretty hard a couple of days ago, and a lot of teachers called trying to, and succeeding to a degree, depending upon where you are, which side of the argument you're on. There are reasons for not being happy with this. When you talk about an 8.2% salary increase in this day and age, that sounds like a lot, but it's over 3 years, and it comes with added work responsibility. So is it a raise, or is it compensation for the extra work that they're going to have to do, or is it a wash because of that? It's a tricky question. Ruthie Quinto is here, and she is the Fresno Unified School District Deputy Superintendent, the CFO, and good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Ray.
That word impasse.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It's part of the negotiations process, and it's nothing that we haven't been through before. We really look forward to actually a mediator coming in that's been appointed by the state in order to help us sort this out. Before I go into any specifics, though, I really need to clear up one point that has been completely miscommunicated this past week, and it's really just what you stated. We are not asking teachers to work more in order to make more. Every teacher will get an 8.2% raise, period. It's effective July 1st, 2013, and on July 1st, 2014, a big chunk will be implemented as well. So really, it's 8.2% for everyone for no additional work over about 16 months.
So that's the drum they're banging real hard.
It is.
If you heard the program the other day, that's all they ever talked about. It's more work. This is a wash. It doesn't work.
Right.
Go on. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, yeah, but it was very purposeful. It's led by CTA. It's a tried and true tactic in order to confuse the situation. But what the part of the proposal that they're referring to is for 20 schools for next year, we are asking for teacher volunteers to join us in teaching an additional 30 minutes at these 20 schools next year, and also providing them an additional 10 days of professional learning. Those teachers who volunteer for those schools would receive an additional 10% pay on top of the 8.2% across the board salary.
Well, that little factoid has been missing from the...
Hasn't it? Yes, it truly has. And this is, again, this unfortunately is a point of confusion that CTA is usually pretty effective in getting out there, and unfortunately has been here in our community. Yes.
Okay, when you say teacher volunteers, who are we talking about?
Basically, we ask teachers who wants to step up and do more to support our students in our most needy schools.
So this is not a mandatory thing.
No, absolutely.
This is not every teacher is going to be taking on another, load of work, and that's that.
No, it's not.
Something else that's been a little cloudy.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, in fact, this is not a model that is brand new. We implemented this 2 years ago at 3 of our very needy schools, as identified by the state, our worst performing schools in the district. And we have seen amazing results. The basics of this model are an additional 30 minutes of student time, student instruction, but not without some supports. We've got to give teachers the professional learning required in order to truly reach the needs of the students. And then additionally, there were additional supports on the campus. And that also is part of our proposal, that at the 20 schools for next year, that we would provide additional supports as well.
Now, when you say student time, instruction, etc., instruction in what, or does that vary?
It does vary, and that's one of the reasons why we really want to come to an agreement with the teachers as soon as possible, because we need time to plan. We need time to work with the teachers and the administrators on the site. We want to get their input into how those 30 minutes will best be utilized. We want to do the professional learning, maybe not all 10 days, but perhaps 5 days before school starts, so that we can collaborate not only on which schools are really the best fit, but also making sure that we have the appropriate number of teachers who stand up and say, yes, this is about educating our students. It is about continuing our dedication to providing the students and our families with the greatest outcomes possible. I'm willing to do this, and I understand it's more work, but I will get compensated an additional 10% more than, over and above, the 8.2% raise. That's across the board.
Again, going back to that word voluntary, this is obviously something that is not going to be imposed, as we've established, on every teacher in the district.
Yes.
How many volunteers will be able to do this? I mean, how can every teacher raise their hand and say, I volunteer to do this? Or is it just going to be a certain group, or what, a certain number?
Well, we have a lateral process, and it does get into a little bit of technicalities on the human resources side, but we do have a process right now by which teachers can raise their hand and volunteer and say, I'd like a different assignment. And when they do that, we follow processes of putting folks into a pool, then running job fairs and having interviews, and just like as if we were starting staffing from the beginning for those teachers who request a new assignment. So we would follow the same processes that we currently have in place.
Okay, I gotta play devil's advocate since I don't have a union person sitting here.
Right.
10% more for these volunteers, plus the 8.2 over 3 years. What's the complaint?
Is it a rhetorical question?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But what is the basis of their complaint?
I believe the basis of their complaint is that it's as spoken by one of the FTA bargaining unit members at our Wednesday night board meeting. His complaint was that he felt as if this would detract from the time that he spends working with his own family and the time that he has at home with his own children.
If he volunteers.
Yes.
That's an if.
Yes.
Nobody's put a gun to his head.
Right, but I think what he was trying to say in his defense is that if we do this at these 20 schools this year and then do another 20 the next year, well, that might be a third of our total teaching population, and perhaps we would need to ask teachers more than just volunteer. We would need to nudge them, or we'd need to have volunteers who necessarily didn't want to do this to begin with. And so he was, looking maybe down toward the future of what this might bring.
Well, the future can entail many things.
Yes.
Over what period of time are we looking at factoring in these volunteers? I mean, if indeed we went to a point where we had to nudge teachers into doing it who didn't want to do it, theoretically, how many years down the road might that be?
We estimate that would be at least 3 years down the road. And from now until that time, we have already committed to a completely revamped system of professional learning. We started implementing it this year. We will continue that in the future. Another piece of our proposal is compensating teachers 3% more. This is, again, above and beyond the 8.2, above and beyond the 10%. If we've got a veteran teacher who feels like they want more professional learning and you take 9 units, we will pay you an additional 3% stipend on top of the other raises. So more incentive for more learning.
So wait a minute here. Well, okay, I'm going to do the math here, which I was never good at in school. Wasn't the school's fault either. So, all right, you volunteer. You get the 10%. You take 9 units, you get 3 more. You get 13%. And then you get the 8.2 over 3 years. Where do I sign up?
Well, Ray, we would love to have you in our classrooms and with our students and showing them the value of not only community involvement, the commitment you've made, the dedication to educating our community. I mean, that's what you do on a daily basis, is you educate our community.
Well, I'm teaching at the adult school, and nights out of clothes. I love it, man. I miss my calling. But, okay, what, how much do they want? You want to give them 8.2, certainly they have a figure.
Right. Their request is 18.2 across the board. And that 18.2%, again, would be for everyone. And the real issue with that is there's no differentiation in the service level or in what we're providing for our students. We have...
That's 18% without this volunteer thing added into it.
Right. It's just across the board.
Because if you add the 10 and the 8.2, you get the 18.2.
Right. And we would rather, and we've got a proven record over the last 9 years of balancing investments in employee compensation. Yes, we must be fair. We must be an employer of choice. We have a challenging population. But if we put all of our resources in only that one investment, then we don't have resources to improve educational programs and provide the social and emotional supports that our students need. Additionally, unfortunately in the past, Fresno Unified has fallen victim to this, is our financial situation. We've got to look toward the future. We need to have a multi-year balanced and phased-in approach. You might remember when Mike Hansen and I came in 2005, we were on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yeah, right.
And once we came in and we started balancing our investments in these three areas, we have maintained our financial stability, and we've been able to continue to improve the educational outcomes for our kids. And that's really what this is about. It's about supporting our families, supporting our community the best way that we can, not just in one bucket. We've got to be balanced.
Let me ask about the compensation package as a whole, if I may.
Yes.
And you may not have this information, but I have always heard, compared to the rest of the state, Fresno Unified School teachers do rather well in terms of what they're paid and their benefit package.
Yes. That is, yes. Would you like me to respond to that?
Yeah, I would.
Yes.
If you
So
can, chapter and verse, that would be great.
Yeah, when we look at salaries and benefits, we actually evaluate a variety of measures. We don't just want to take beginning salary or middle salary or average salary or any. We want to look at an across-the-board, a valuable measure. So we compare ourselves to all of the large urbans around the state and also to our local school districts, the ones who we compete with most, Central and Clovis, for the highest quality teachers. And we looked at 10-year career earnings, 20-year career earnings, and 25-year career earnings. So if you work for Fresno Unified for 25 years or 10 or 20, we are the highest paid employer on the valley floor compared to our neighbors. Now, if we compare ourselves to all the large urbans and other places in the state, we are fourth. We're behind Garden Grove, Long Beach, and Santa Ana in those three career earning points.
That's fourth is pretty high in the state, though.
It is pretty high given the difference in cost of living.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. I knew it was up there. I thought it was in the top 5, and that was my speculation, and I'm right. Okay, so now we have an impasse. A mediator has to come in. What happens? How does that work?
A mediator will come in. They are very diligent at listening to both sides, taking in our positions and our information, looking at where we started and where we ended before we declared impasse, and really working hard with both the district and with the union to try to reach an agreement before we have to go to fact-finding. The mediator will provide a written statement, if you will, but before they go there, they make sure that both the union and the district understand where they're going to be coming from, and they give us every opportunity to reach an agreement before we have to go to the next step.
Who supplies the mediator? Where does the mediator come from?
The state supplies the mediator. They have a panel of mediators that have a variety of background and experience. So usually someone who has both experience with unions and experience working in an administration, and also some required mediation training, and may have a legal background. Mm-hmm. But we have every faith in the mediation process that the PERB, that the board that oversees public employees in Sacramento, we have every faith in their process and in their appointments.
All right, let's take a little breather for just a couple of minutes. Phone numbers, if you're out there, if you're on the teaching end or anywhere, and you want to maybe challenge some of this or hear a little bit more from Ruthie, 490-5858. 800-776-5858. Again, Ruthie Quinto is the CFO of the Fresno Unified School District, and it's that impasse that's been in the news lately. And we will continue News Talk 580 from Fresno Acura right after this. Welcome back. We're at Fresno Acura today. Ruthie Quinto is here, who is the CFO for the Fresno Unified School District. We're talking about this impasse between the teachers union and the school district. I got many questions of my own, but let me grab a couple of calls here, if I may. And Jill, you're first out of the block on this segment. Hi, talk to us.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I've got a different take on this. I'm from back east. I live out here now. I think the teachers deserve a pay cut. Anytime a kid transferred from a California school back east, it didn't matter where in California, they were 1 to 2 years behind and had to be put back and re-educated. The teachers here in California are drastically overpaid, and my mother was a teacher.
Let me ask you one question. Do you believe that to be the fault of the teachers, or is it the fault of the curriculum, or a combination of both?
Both, and not being able to discipline the kids or even raise their voice at them if they misbehave or ignore them.
And to your knowledge, in other states, they're able to do that more freely than we are here?
I don't know that they are anymore. But when I was in school, if I started misbehaving, I knew there were consequences. If I ignored the teacher, I knew there were consequences. And that's
God, we all did.
Overall problem now.
Oh, there's no doubt that that has changed, especially in California, you know, the home of the Sue Me, Sue You blues.
Yeah, they don't seem to be doing the job because California kids are not as educated as the rest of the country, yet they're paid more than the rest of the country.
All right, Jill. Obviously, we need to get a response. Thank you very much. You have a good weekend. Drive carefully. Ruthie, what do you want to say?
Well, I would agree that there are situations where our curriculum and our discipline need to be improved. We need to continue. Yes, we need to continue to evolve. And to that regard, the Common Core state standards were adopted by the state of California. We started implementing them this year. And we do believe this is going to drastically change how students think about their learning and the ability.
I think about it?
Yes,
we'll save that for another show.
I heard that you thought about it a lot a couple of weeks ago and talked about it a lot. But it is an option, an opportunity to get more across the board comparability with the nation, and also to have students think deeper about the standards that they are learning. But yes, I know you had a few shows about that.
Getting back to the mediator, just the actual mediator, him or herself, do both sides have to agree on this person?
No, the mediator is actually appointed by the state.
The state says, it's this person, go into a room, get out of here.
Yes. When we go to fact-finding, if mediation does not result in an agreement, when we go to fact-finding, I do believe that we do get some say and some options.
Well, that was my next question. What if the mediation doesn't work? What's fact-finding?
Fact-finding is where we get a little more technical on the aspects of our proposal. There are a few more specific measures that we are evaluating on, like the ones that we were just talking about, career earnings, beginning salary, ending salary. Are we really competitive? Are we keeping up? Are we recognizing the need for investment in the across-the-board salaries and benefits in order to remain competitive? And then the evaluation of the other aspects of our proposals, like the reduction in class size that Fresno Unified is proposing versus the reduction in class size that the teachers are proposing, and really what is comparable in our area and whether or not we're hitting the mark on some of those measures.
Okay, I've got to bust out for a news break again very quickly here, but one final question before we do that, Ruthie. This present impasse, just for the sake of the basis of understanding, how long has it been going on? How long have you guys been at it with each other?
We have been at the bargaining table since June. We have had 20 meetings and spent 140 hours at the bargaining table. We, Fresno Unified, unilaterally declared impasse on February 13th. The teachers' union opposed it to the state, and the state agreed with Fresno Unified that we had spent more than enough time trying to come to an agreement that it was time to bring in a state mediator.
We've got a news break right now at KMJ. We'll come back with more on this issue with Ruthie and yours truly on News Talk 580. Hey there, happy Friday. Continuing on this little impasse with the Fresno Unified School District and the Teachers Union. More calls coming up right now for Ruthie Quinto, who's the CFO of the school district. And we're going to hit the lines right now with Patrick. Glad you called, man. Talk to us. Hi.
Hi. Well, let me preface this that politically I'm a Republican, but I've been in coaching and teaching for 30-plus years. Mom was with Fresno Unified for 20 years at Tiffany Middle School. It's a pretty tough school.
Yeah, good for you,
man. And I've been all over. I'm no longer in Fresno Unified. But I'm going to tell you, I keep hearing this, whether it's talking heads or others, how bad teachers are. And just like the previous caller, look how they're performing. And quite honestly, if you're in the trenches, and I'm from a military family, so I'm going to use that term, in that if you're in the trenches, actually in the classroom, the vast majority of teachers are very good, the vast majority. And I can tell you, and I speak for many, if not most, parenting is different now. And if you give it an estimate, it's 80 to 90% parenting when you've got issues. And I'm going to tell you, there's absolute chaos in many classrooms, particularly in Fresno Unified. in the 90s, my mom's final year at Tippity, she was held at knife point in the classroom. I'd be rescued by cops and a wrestling coach. Still loved her job, and yet, conversely, she would not cross the picket line and was not treated well by union members. So,
hey, can I ask you a question, Patrick?
Go ahead.
How old was the individual that did that to your mother, pulled the knife on her?
He was 16.
Okay. All right, go on.
Well, anyway, so my long-winded point is this. It's fault lies with administrators, primarily, and parents. And I can tell you, just give this one of countless examples. You know, a kid will cuss me out as a substitute teacher, threaten me, and he has a one-day suspension. And I'm talking threaten to kill me, racist comments, and they're back in the classroom. Teachers' hands are tied when it comes to that. So that's from the administrative end on the frustration that teachers may have. And don't get me wrong, there's bad teachers out there for sure, as in any institute, in any endeavor, any arena. But when I keep hearing, especially on the news, and quite honestly from the Republican ilk, of which I'm one, I hear, oh my God, the teachers. Parenting is foremost, and I misspoke earlier. Parenting is foremost, administrative is second, and fault lies with teachers thirdly.
All right. I don't really disagree with anything you've said. I mean, from my point of view, I'm not in the classroom with a bunch of little kids, but I think you're right on. Ruthie, what do you think?
Well, I do think that our socioeconomic situation has changed, and I do think we need to recognize that we are all responsible for positive student outcomes, and that it's not going to be solved by the curriculum in a classroom or class size necessarily or any one silver bullet. This is really a holistic approach to education, and it is changed. It is not like it was even in the 90s, and certainly not prior to that, where we are in a more challenging situation, and that is why the governor recognized with the new resources that are being offered through the local control funding formula that concentrated poverty and the challenges that come along with disadvantaged populations require more supports. The additional supports are specifically not for across-the-board salary increases. They are for helping teachers, helping school site administrators reach students, engage them in the school, engage them in social or emotional supports, and give them a reason to want to stay in school and stay on target to graduate. So that is a very interesting point. I do believe that administrators in the past, and frankly even some of our past superintendents, have given in and put all the resources on the salary schedule without looking at a more balanced investment in the areas of supporting our families, supporting our students in other ways with counselors and social workers, and frankly, they're needed. They're needed at the school sites where our kids are every day. So, again, this administration, our board, and our leadership has been fabulous in recognizing that we need to balance those investments. Yes, we must remain competitive, and we want to be the top-paid employer in the Valley, but we also need to improve student outcomes and invest in educational programs, and, of course, at the same time, maintain our financial stability.
Right on. Patrick, thank you. I'll defer. Let's take another caller here, but I do have an important question. Bob, go ahead. You're on KMJ in the Ray Appleton program. Hi.
Hi. I just want to comment a little bit. I don't know how the school system. I'm not a credentialed teacher, but I do have a private martial art academy that I teach students, and I'm pretty sure it's not a far from the regular school. So my experience when the previous caller said about parenting, oh, that is number one. And then at the same time, if the student wants to be there, oh, they learn, because all my students that come to my academy, they want to be there, and the parents are invested in it. So why can't we duplicate this in the public school system? That's my big question.
What, make the parents pay for it?
Well, not the parents pay for it, but find a curriculum to where the kids want to be there. And even though the parents don't pay for it, the parents have to be invested in some way. You know?
Okay, I think I know where you're coming from. I mean, if we had that answer of something that we could do along the lines of a curriculum or whatever that would incite parents to participate and make their kid participate, I mean, that would be the magic bullet to solve all problems in public education. But, Ruthie, I'll let you run with that.
Well, there is no magic bullet, as I was saying earlier, Ray, and what we are tasked with is recognizing when an additional program like the one that Bob was talking about provides a resource for a student and a family that is going to specifically help that disadvantaged student be either more engaged in what they're doing at school and stay in school on target to graduate. That's exactly the kind of additional educational support that the board has prioritized in the balancing of our resources. And frankly, it's also exactly the type of, it's a good example of an additional support that the governor intends be funded and directed towards disadvantaged populations. It's why he's giving districts like Fresno Unified with very high concentrated poverty additional resources to reach out and do something different.
One thing that I think is really important in this whole impasse that I think everybody who's not a teacher needs to understand is when we're looking at 8.2% over 3 years, an additional 10% for this voluntary thing that Ruthie has elaborated on 2 or 3 times here. This is not for 365 days a year. This is not for even what I would work in the terms of calendar days per year. Teachers still get a nice little chunk of time off, don't they?
Well, at Fresno Unified, currently we have a 3-week break at the winter break. We also have a 1-week break at springtime. And then currently we have about a 9-week summer break. And our contract currently calls for teachers to work 185 days. Most of the general public, myself included, work 228 days. So that's, it is a difference there. I will say, if we do have an agreement and we can implement our proposal to increase the student day and also to increase 10 days of professional learning for the additional 10% raise, then that working year would go from 185 to 195. So I do want to make that clear. It is more days. So.
Often when I bring that up, when we're into some sort of a union impasse or I'm just talking about unions, teachers, whatever, I always get calls from teachers who get a little arrogant. They get a little flip with me. Not all, believe me. Who say, well, you know what, we get all this time off, but we're still working. Our work is never done. If so, what are they doing? I mean, that's time off, period, isn't it? Unless they're teaching summer school classes or something like that.
Well, the 185 days do include 3 professional development days as well as 2 days, I believe, to get your classroom ready before school starts. But it's a 180-day school year for students. I will say that I've got some very close family members who are fabulous teachers, and
you better say that if they're close.
They are.
They won't be close much longer.
They are so dedicated, and they are on campus far longer than what's minimally required. They coach after school, 3 sports per year. They're extremely invested, and they do walk with their papers that need to be corrected, and they're thinking about their lesson planning and what they need to do when school gets back in. And it's not a faucet that you turn on and off. And I don't want it to sound like I'm not realistic in that, they are constantly thinking of how to reach their kids and how to, for my sister who was a kindergarten teacher for, a dozen years or so, her goal was always to have every student reading before Christmas. Every student reading before Christmas break. And I thought that was so admirable and commendable, given the fact that, many of those kids were 4 years old and not even 5 yet.
Right on.
And those are the kinds of teachers and the dedicated families that we need in order to support our kids.
We have more, and we have available phone lines, too. 490-5858, toll-free KMJ Ray Appleton, 800-776-5858. We're going to continue at Fresno Acura right after a quick news update. We'll be back. Let's do it now. Hey there. Welcome back to KMJ. Talking with Ruthie, ruined your name. Don't sue me. Everybody else is. Ruthie Quinto, who is the FUSD CFO, Fresno Unified School District. And the theme, of course, is that impasse between them and the union. And I'm asking, Ruthie, you a lot to play devil's advocate, but when the union comes running for their handout, what pool of money are they tapping into? Which tree is this growing on? You guys are pretty strapped. You know?
Right. Well, we have done such a great job. Again, the leadership of our board over the last 9 years has really put us in a very stable financial position. I know, actually, when I was a city controller, I was a guest on your program about a decade ago, and we talked in great deal about the challenges of the economics here in the Central Valley. Fresno Unified has taken a balanced approach to maintain our fiscal stability, and so we do have a healthy reserve, and it's been recognized by the state and our credit rating agencies, and we've maintained that rating, and we're proud of that. However, the state finally has turned around economically, and the governor has provided additional resources to
I was going to say, wasn't there a recent pool of money from the governor?
Yes, there is, and it's the local control funding formula. It specifically weights student funding differently, provides more resources to districts who have concentrated poverty, high numbers of English learners, and also foster youth. For Fresno Unified, we have a significant disadvantaged population. Again, that's a terminology there of the kids in poverty, the foster youth, and the English learners. So our disadvantaged population is relatively high compared to other districts in the state. So we're getting additional resources. However, those additional resources have regulations. Yeah. The governor said, and that's in law, we need to provide direct services to students that improve their outcomes, that are the most effective for maintaining positive outcomes for our kids and for providing them a basis for a successful life.
Now, I would rather imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, that pool of money that came down from the governor rather recently, that's for the classroom. It in theory, probably couldn't be used for compensation, could it? Or could it?
Well, technically, there is one of the 8 areas that's required under the local control funding formula's plan that is due actually by July 1st. One of those areas is basic services. And I do believe that one of the reasons why that was included was so that compensation could be taken into consideration. However, the governor and the folks in the Department of Finance at the state have made it very clear that there is a base grant that should cover basic services, and that these supplemental and concentration grants, which are designated and designed for the direct supports for our disadvantaged populations, that those should not be utilized for these across-the-board raises. Now, is it law or is it hard and fast and set in stone? No. You could try to justify in your plan why the across-the-board salary increases are the most effective use of these supplemental and concentration funds, or a portion of these supplemental and concentration funds. We at Fresno Unified, we do not believe that. We believe that the policy is more of a guideline. Are we competitive? Are we the highest paid in the valley? Are we the fourth highest paid of all the largest school districts? If the answers to those questions are yes, then we want to remain competitive, and then we want to utilize those additional resources to reach the disadvantaged populations, and that's the whole point of the local control funding formula.
Is there any danger of a strike?
I would hope the answer to that question is no. I don't think that we have heard from the masses and the teachers that are on the ground every day. I think right now we're hearing from union leadership, and I do believe that that is different from what we will hear from the teachers who are doing this.
This may be an atypical situation that I see in many union grinds where the rank and file is like, get over it and get on with it. Just itching for it to be over because people want to work. So I would hope that there wouldn't be any room for a strike in here, because the only people that hurts are the kids in the classroom. Period.
Yeah, yes, and we do we have heard from several teachers who are supportive, but the fact of the matter is we're not bargaining with those teachers. We are bargaining with the leadership of the union, and we will stay true to those requirements.
Christina, I didn't hear that name. Tell me again, please. Sean. Okay. Sean, you're on KMJ. Hi.
Yes, I want to ask the representative there with the district why they want to spend $3.5 million of that LLCF money on security cameras.
Boy, I would say why not? You probably need more, but Ruthie, I'll let you play with that.
Well, first of all, that is a point that came up at Wednesday's board meeting from a public speaker. And let me be very clear. We are not spending LCFF money on security cameras. As I've mentioned several times, we've done a wonderful job of setting ourselves up financially with some stability. We have a larger than required reserve. Of course, I would not recommend spending it all down, but one thing that the superintendent has recommended to the board is that we take some of that reserve, some of the additional resources that we have in our savings account, and that we use that one-time money for this one-time need, which is to improve security cameras, take advantage of the technology that's available to us, high definition, infrared, night vision. We want to make sure that we have a good eye on the safety and security of our campuses.
I am flat out of time, but just to stress again, the money that you would use for the security cameras is not from that pool of money we've been talking about.
No, it is not.
Okay, so that was misspoken by the individual on the phone there.
Yes, sir.
I'll use those terms. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you, Ray. Always a pleasure to be here.
Ruthie, anytime. Ruthie Quinto, who's the CFO of the Fresno Unified School District, on KMJ. Back after this.